So here we are in Cornwall, in Charlestown, and it's an opportunity for us to have conversation about things and to share. Okay, we'll start with your grandmother because she's interesting, and you're very interesting. But that will come out as we speak.
Yes. What I'm about to tell you is my early life, just before the Second World War, and where I spent lovely holidays with my grandma. She was a large-boned woman, which was unusual in my family. We were all small-boned.
Yes.
And she lived in what I thought was rather an interesting house. As a child, I thought this.
Yes.
It was a terraced house with a long, narrow garden. And inside, when you went inside the house, you walked up a passage, past a sitting room, and you walked down some stone steps, 21 of them they were.
Yeah.
I went so often, I always counted them.
Yeah.
21. And at the bottom was a stone-floored cellar kitchen.
Yes.
In which my grandmother, who was, I think, about 80 at the time, probably not, I'm not sure, but no, I rather think she was less than that. Yeah. She lived in the cellar kitchen. I never went in the sitting room on the first floor, but she slept right at the peak of the house in the attic, which always intrigued me as to why she did this. She always did. And at the side of her bed she had a packet of mint imperial sweets, and if ever I ventured up that way she would give me one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I had a very happy relationship with my grandma. It was vitally important to me as a child because I had a very bossy older sister and I had an adored younger brother. I was one in the middle.
Yes.
But for my grandmother I was special. When we visited her as a family, she would say, "Joyce can stay if she likes," which I think to this day was a great compliment. And she lived in a town, and I always lived in the country. So for me to be able to wander about and a few pennies and go and buy mixtures of sweets and sticks of licorice and things, it was all wonderful, wonderful. But the most wonderful of all, just round the corner, was a cinema. And she allowed me to go to the cinema. I think it cost 3p, which was a thick coin for the first, quite just minted about that time. And I went in the cinema and I watched a film. That small amount. Well, I lived in the country. I'd lived in the country my whole life. Never seen a cinema. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had an ease about our relationship with my grandmother. I never remember her chastising me or speaking sharply to me. We were just two very easygoing people, which is really wonderful, I thought. And very important for me at that growing up time of my life. And also she used to buy weekly the woman's magazine, The Woman. It was called The Woman. Yeah. And I took great joy in reading this every person delivered. I think she liked the fact that I enjoyed it, but I never knew her to smile at me or to touch me in any way at all, never put her arm around me. And she, in this cellar kitchen where she lived, most of her other time, there was like a labyrinth of small cellars that you went in. One was shut off, and when notice came that the coalman was coming, and then it was all tightened up, and he lifted a big metal lid outside, a lead one or something, and tipped in the coal supply and put the lid on, and that was it, which was very neat and tidy, very nice. And this was in just around the corner from where my grandmother had her coal fire, and she did something that always intrigued me. Regularly she would put a firework up the chimney.
What?
Yeah, and this went bang, and something fell down. And that was much cheaper than getting a chimney sweep. So she did this on a regular.
Wow.
It quite intrigued me, as you can imagine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But the nicest thing about my grandma really was her simple and total acceptance of me, which is so nice. Yeah. And she also had a granddaughter who was grown up and married, and she spent her teen years living with my grandmother. And so in one of the drawers was treasure trove, a box of jewellery. Cheap jewellery, but for me it was wonderful. I was allowed to take it out. There's a nice gold-looking watch and string of pearls, and gave once again these things. But I never met anyone else when I stayed with my grandma, and I never went out of the house with her. She liked to have a drop of beer, and she had a square jug called Jimmy something, a Scottish theme on it, and she used to ask me in the evenings would I go out to the
off licence?
Yes, but it was you went at an early time and tapped on the glass window, and he lifted it up and he filled you up with frothy beer, and I took it back to my grandma. And this was just all part of being with my grandma, nothing striking or unusual about it. But on reflection, it does seem a little bit unusual. Yeah.
So what did she do in the kitchen? Because she spent so much time there. What did she actually do in the kitchen?
She just read her magazines that she loved, and she wore knee-length black bottom boots, for which she had like a corkscrew thing, and she slotted it. Well, he was a buttoner, and you put it in, and it whoop, 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 all right to the top. And quite a performance. Was put on, they weren't taken off till bedtime. And my grandmother always wore black or grey, always. And her grown-up children, well grown up, in their sort of 40s, 50s or whatever, would have a go at her occasionally and say, "Mother, please wear something colourful. Stop wearing grey and black." And they would knit her, what I thought at the time, rather garish jumpers, and I thought she wouldn't look like it. She wouldn't look right in that. And I thought, I hope she doesn't accept it. Yeah. So in those days I was well aware that, I had a special rapport with her. I would never have offered her a peach-coloured jumper.
No.
It just wasn't right for her one bit. Yeah, but it was all a very, very silent relationship. And I think we both cared for each other very much.
Yes.
But didn't live in the sort of time or society where one said that. Now, your mother never told you she loved you. Nobody did.
No.
You just hoped they did, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was my grandma.
So I want to ask you about her kitchen, because she must have done things. What did she do in the kitchen, and what was it like? How was it organised?
Well, she used to read a lot, read all the magazines, and she would cook, and she baked bread and everything like that. Yeah. She baked bread, I know that, because everybody baked their own bread then.
Right.
And she probably put a stew on or something, but she had to be very wary of soup falling down or anything with no lid on it. And it was even now, I think it was. I think I would regard it as cheap food. Yes, there's no sort of posh pieces of meat in it and things like that. I think had there been any meat in it, she would have gone to the butcher's and asked for scrag end.
Yes.
Yeah, and nevertheless, it was nourishing.
Did she make cakes or any fancy things?
No.
Not at all. Very simple, very plain.
There was nothing fancy about my grandmother.
Yeah.
I wore these right to the floor, long skirts and things.
Yeah.
The interesting thing to me was that every Tuesday evening she would go to the cinema with a woman friend, and my grandmother would dress up and put a warm coat and all that sort of thing on, and leave me on my own. I'm perfectly happy about that, and always showed absolute trust in me. And of course, we were in a cellar, so nobody wouldn't attempt to get in. So you felt very secure in the cellar kitchen.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah. 21 steps from the ground to the bottom of the stone steps they were too. Yeah. No, I never in the least minded, and because I'm missing out the important thing on the ground floor, up the 21 steps. She had a rather nice sitting room for visitors, and in it was a bookcase. I never knew my grandmother to read anything but Family Weekly and those sort of things. But I was Gone with the Wind, all sorts of great books in those. I absolutely adored it.
So you read a lot of her books?
Oh, I did, yes, but she didn't read them, but I did, yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I think she hadn't bought them, that come from her daughters.
Yes.
I bought them, read them, and left them on a bookshelf.
Yeah.
So, but to see a bookshelf was quite something novel in those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a great joy of being there. Yeah. So when she went to the cinema, I just got a book out, and it's always perfectly relaxed. Felt perfectly safe there. Yes, very, very good indeed. Yeah.
That's great.
So that's my grandma.
Thank you.
It's all such a very long time ago now, because I am now 89 years old, and will have my 90th birthday in a few months.
Yes. So we're now moving the subject along a little bit, and we're talking about your dad. So if you tell us about World War II and your dad, and what you was doing before, and then...
The early part of my life, my father was a coal miner, and he worked very hard in the mines, and worked something like a particular seam, they would say, and if they did that and stuck on a bit longer, they got more money. And he had 3 children, one of them being me, and so he did work very hard. And when the war broke out, he was friendly with my mother's brother. And I was going to say they conferred together, but doubt if they even did that. Off they went to sign on for the army, and they spent the rest of the duration in the army. And my father, really, we felt we'd lost him. Yes, so he joined with my mother's brother, and for the duration of the war. And most of the time, I was stationed in Lancashire. We didn't see very much of him, very little indeed, but he became a prison warden. And this was a takeover of the cotton mills in Lancashire, where they sent all the prisoners. And there had them segregated, the Italians in one place and the Germans in another, or whatever. And my father, I think, quite liked this work, particularly the Italians. The Italians were so friendly to him and showed him pictures of their children, and he shows them photographs of his children, and it went on. And the interesting thing was that one night, locking up time, my father got locked in with the prisoners. Now, if these had been German, he said he knew he wouldn't have come out of that alive the next day. But it was just wonderful. After the war, I'll come and marry your daughter, and all that sort of stuff. And marry with your daughter, they used to say. Yeah. She's very pretty, and and he began a relationship with a woman in Lancashire. He was a long way from home, because in those days there was no transport, and we hardly saw him at all. And then we heard later that formed this relationship with the other woman, I might not come back down and live with us ever. But he did, which we're very happy about. And he didn't go down the pit, he had enough of that. Just up the road, about a quarter of a mile away from where we lived, the people that owned our house were Quakers, and there was a big Quaker school there. And my father was a caretaker, got a job as caretaker, which he liked very much. But he worked there for quite a while. Then, by this time, of course, I was growing up myself, and I joined the Air Force. So I don't really know what my father did afterwards. But I did hear that at one point he was white lining the road.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was a very cheerful man, very easygoing, very cheerful indeed, yeah. And he liked a pint of beer, yeah. He wasn't a drunkard, but he just liked to have a pint of beer on a regular basis. And very easygoing, a very good father, I thought. He didn't keep Harrison and saying, you must be in at 10 o'clock and things like that. He was, he might say, well, come back a bit earlier next time. Yes, from the local dance. And
yeah, quite an easy person to have around then, yeah.
a very easy father, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But of course now we come to my mother. And my mother was a very difficult subject because poor woman was born blind, didn't open her eyes for months. And
Gosh.
and oddly enough, with my memory, is always of her wearing pink framed glasses. So she obviously had a weakness of her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked in a record shop. That surprises me to this day, in Wakefield, which is a town. She lived with her parents. And my father met her in there. And met and they eventually got married. And had, first of all, my sister, and 18 months later, myself, and then 5 years later, my brother. Yeah. It was very hard for my father, because my mother was schizophrenic. And that was very, very hard indeed. Although it was sometimes a trial for us, it wasn't all the time. And probably because of that, as soon as I hit 19, I left and joined the Air Force, and it was simply to get away completely. And as I say these days, make a new life, which I did. And I've never gone back at all, in any way.
Mm.
So that's the end of my childhood.
So you were glad to get out, yes. Mm. So what was it like living with your mum? What was it like living with her?
Well, she was profoundly deaf. And that made things difficult indeed, yeah. She adored my brother, because he was a little boy and there's quite a large gap between us. She didn't like my sister, who was older than me and extremely bossy. And my mother, although she wasn't altogether with him anyway, she certainly picked up on this, and she never did like my sister. To the end of her days, she used to say, "Oh, she's so bossy. Don't have anything to do with her, she's bossy." Yeah. And she always liked me, and I know she did, and it didn't matter that I'd left them and I went back, she always delighted to see me, and always said how nice I looked. Once I was wearing a maroon velvet jacket, and she just thought that was lovely.
Mm.
But had I been in rags, I think she'd have said the same.
Mm.
Yeah, she was very, I always felt that I was loved by my mother, even though she wasn't very capable of doing anything much. I felt she loved me, yeah. So I was a loved child, as was my brother, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't selected out or anything like that, but it's something a child instinctively knows.
Mm.
They know that the parent loves them, yeah. Yeah. Of course, Kathleen was so bossy, that's why she couldn't stand her. Oh no, you can't have that, she used to say. You can't have that coloured rug because it doesn't match the counterpane on your, the cover on your bed. And, you know, oh dear, Kathleen was absolute pain, yeah. And very prim and very proper. And no joy in her. And my mother was very well aware of this. And she greatly favoured me also, between the two of them. Yeah. So I'm sorry for my sister.
Indeed, I think that's a good point.
Must speak about my brother, of whom I was very, very fond. To the end of his life, we had a very close bond, and I think it's because we had a deaf or schizophrenic mother. It made life very haphazard, and we found a closeness ourselves. My brother was 5 years younger than me, and I taught him to read, and when he was at the end of his life, he said he's always been grateful for the fact that I taught him to read, because the love of books stayed with him till he died.
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
Yes, it was, yeah. And I would come home from school, and every Monday at school we were allowed half an hour to read a book. And I would come home from school, and that evening then I would remember it all and tell my brother. Yeah, so all the Dickens books, you know,
so you tell him the story?
Yes, from the book, what I'd remembered. And he couldn't wait to get to bed. I could go and tell him a story. Yes, and it was I was very important in his life from that point of view alone, because, you know, when our father away, an absent father, a schizophrenic mother, it was really like being orphaned in a way. And I very much felt orphaned at one point in my life when I was 11 years old. Yeah, I really did, yes, yeah. It was very hard. Sadly my brother died 7 years ago in Australia where he immigrated. So it had been always a really good, lovely relationship. And we would go years without seeing each other. And we had an instant rapport. And with always humour in it. And his wife used to get very irritated because within a few minutes of meeting each other, he would make a comment and we would be rolling about laughing. And we would laugh and laugh and laugh, and it used to get us so cross. She was a very plain fat woman, bossy as they come. Yeah, and they had 7 children. Yeah, yes, yeah. That's my brother. Yeah.
Indeed, I think that's a good point to end on. Brilliant.
Yeah.